So, okay, thank you everybody. And okay, so I made this presentation very, hurry. So maybe I will talk much and so less. So okay, great. Okay, so we are going to talk about recent work by Plochinger and Renner. It was published in 2018, and it has created a kind of controversy in the field of foundation of quantum mechanics, and many people have criticized it. But at the same time, it is a very important result in foundation of quantum mechanics. So we will discuss it, and we'll see that how it contributes to foundation of quantum mechanics. So we'll begin with what a no-go theorem is, and why it is important in quantum mechanics. And then we will discuss the quantum measurement problem around which this theorem revolves. And then we will discuss the Plochinger-Renner theorem. So we will look at this thought. Okay. Okay. So what is a no-go theorem? So basically, no-go theorem is a theorem that states that a theory with a conjunction of certain set of assumptions. Sorry, somebody asked.
No, I think it was nothing.
Okay.
Please carry on.
So okay, so it is a statement about theory that certain conjunction of certain set of assumptions cannot explain existing physical scenarios of phenomena, and hence must be ruled out as a candidate. So we see that in a physical theory, we assume certain assumptions or principles and try to explain physical world. Then there can be multiple theories which explain the same phenomena, and the question raises is that which theory is the true solution of the problem. Then it becomes important to rule out certain candidates based on empirical evidence or logical contradictions, and that's where no-go theorem plays a role. So for example, Bell's theorem is an example of no-go theorem, where locality, realism, and freedom of choice cannot go together. And similarly, there is a Kochen-Specker theorem on contextuality, that non-contextual hidden variable theories cannot explain quantum mechanical phenomena. And sometimes the no-go theorem can appear as a statement that a particular situation under consideration is not physically possible. For example, no cloning theorem or no broadcasting theorem, which is which is related to the statement above, that there are certain assumptions in the no cloning theorem which cannot go together. For example, we cannot copy a quantum state, unlikely the classical scenario. So consider here that A is a set of assumptions which goes into a theory A, and there are a set of assumptions B which goes into a theory B, and similarly C, P, Q, and others. Now there can be assumptions in A and B which are common, and similarly there can be common in A and C, B and C, and there can be an intersection where there are theories where there are certain assumptions from A, B, and C which are common. Now, a no-go theorem can provide a statement that assumptions from region A and B cannot explain certain physical scenarios. Hence, we should exclude all theories which has conjunction of A and B. So in that case, we can exclude all the candidates which assumes conjunction of A and B. So, so similarly, there can be a theory which we do not know any assumption right now, but they can exist in nature. When we say assumptions, they are okay. They are usually physical principles we or postulates we assume. Okay, so there can be assumptions which we do not know yet, but there are theories which consider P, and some assumptions lie in A and C. Okay, so there can be theories we do not know, but they can be a suitable candidate for the for the solution. So I have given the example of Bell's theorem, where locality, realism, and freedom. So pay attention that here we are considering a set of assumptions A. Now here set is a particular assumption, and the intersections are kind of representing theories that assume locality, realism, and freedom of choice is represented by red. So these are local hidden variable theories, and Bell's theorem says such theories are not possible. Okay, so similarly, there is a question specker, but I have not shown it here. So if conjunction of three of these assumptions are not possible, then what can we say about the physical theories that reproduce quantum mechanical results? So one example is we have choice of locality and freedom of choice. So that is quantum mechanics, and there can be additional assumptions. Yes.
Sorry, I have a doubt here. I don't really know what this assumption of realism is.
Okay. So I can discuss it here, but it is not a topic of today's talk. But
we can
realism,
later.
Yeah. But I can briefly mention that realism is defined according to Einstein, is that a value of an observable exists before a prior measurement with certainty. Okay, so but there are definitions of realism beyond Einstein's notions also. Okay, so right now we are considering here is that the value of observable exists a prior measurement with certainty. It's just the matter that observer does not know it, or it is possible that nature does not allow it to be unveiled. Okay. Is it clear? Yeah. So okay, so I can give an example. Like suppose you have a double slit experiment, and photon is going through a slit 1, and there is a possibility that it goes through slit 2. At the interference point, you are trying to retrocausally make a statement that where did it come from. Okay, now if one takes realism as an assumption, one is bound to say either it went through slit 1 or 2. Okay, so now here observable we are considering is the location of particle when it passes through the plane where the slit is arranged. Okay, now it takes only a particular value, but in quantum mechanics one can relax this assumption and say that it is not the case that it went through slit 1 or 2. It is possible that it went through both. So it is kind of that the value of observable does not exist before it landed to the screen. Okay. Now
I think Jaswant Bhaiya has also raised a hand.
So yes, yeah.
So in the diagram, you have shown quantum mechanics in the intersection of locality, freedom of choice, and some other postulate T.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, what does this mean?
Sorry.
Why not just locality and freedom of choice?
Okay. So see, in quantum mechanics, if we look at the formalism as we will discuss it. So there are notions of state description in Hilbert space, then homogeneity and all that. So there are certain assumptions which goes into explaining the quantum phenomena. It's not just the locality and freedom of choice. There can be anything additional. Okay. For example, you can say that So the whole point is that we cannot reconstruct entire theory based on just locality and freedom of choice. Can we?
Okay, I don't have any,
Yeah.
contradictory statement right now, but
Okay.
it seems, yeah, I think we should continue.
Okay. Yeah. So it can be a null set, but we think that there should be some additional things which explain the curve we get. So if you look at the Bell violation, so people are trying to explain Bell violation, the quantum violation limit by physical principles, right? So using generalized probability distributions, what principles we should assume that it gives you quantum mechanical violation?
Right.
So there has to be certain assumptions. Okay, it can come from principle of information causality or anything. There can be various.
Right. Okay.
And similarly, there is a Bohemian mechanics which assumes realism and freedom of choice. Okay, and there can be additional assumptions as well. And there are, so we are not going to discuss that. So these are two candidates. There can be many other candidates also, where it's just a matter that the theory does not assume the conjunction of locality, realism, and freedom of choice. So no-go theorem is basically an approach to test certain interpretations, theories, which are substitutes for quantum mechanics. Okay. Okay. So let's discuss the problem of quantum measurement. Okay. So in a physical theory or a laboratory scenario, let's not talk about theory right now. It's the physical scenario. How do we perform experiments or study the empirical scenarios? So what we have is a physical system, and that physical system has certain physical properties, and these properties evolves with time or certain parameters. Time is not necessary here. So these physical properties transform or evolve with certain parameters, and then we get a final physical property of that system. Now observer performs measurement on these systems to acquire information about these physical properties. Okay, so one measurement is like initially to determine what was the properties at the beginning of the experiment and what were the properties at the end of the experiment. And these information, using these informations, observer tries to determine the transformation according or hypothesize the model to explain this transformation. So the part the transformation plays is the dynamics. Okay, so it is a dynamics of a theory. Now question is how to model this all. Okay, so usually what is done is that a mathematical structure is associated with the system, which explains the state of the system and the all physical properties. For example, consider the thermodynamic system, classical thermodynamic system. Consider a classical thermodynamic system where it's a pressure, temperature, and volume are your physical properties, and these properties changes with time. Okay, depending on your constants of your dynamics, and you measure final properties, and you study these things. Okay, similarly the classical mechanics, okay, Newtonian mechanics, your physical properties are position and momentum. So you study the change in position and momentum with respect to time. Okay, and these properties, the evolution of property, are determined by the dynamics which usually is they're given by Lagrangian, or if you take Hamiltonian approach, or F is equals to ma, the second law of Newton. Okay, so now here measurements plays an important role to acquire the information about the system. In classical mechanics, it does not make an impact on the physical system, but in quantum counterpart, it plays a significant role. Okay, so this theory of quantum mechanics postulates certain things. Okay, so first is that to give a description of quantum system, we consider the mathematical description of states and observables. Okay, so I think most of you are aware of this, that state of an isolated system in quantum mechanics at any instant of time is represented by a vector of unit length in a Hilbert space. Yeah, and all measurable physical properties are represented by Hermitian operators. Okay, and this vector evolves with time according to the Schrodinger equation, which is governed by the Hamiltonian of the system. Now, this is the dynamics of a closed system. So any closed system, it can be any continuous or discrete variable. Now, when there are composite systems, that there are multiple quantum systems, then we use the tensor product to describe the composite Hilbert space. Okay, I made some mistake. Okay, now comes the final part, measurements. As I said, that in classical mechanics, measurements are not that important. Okay, they are important, but study of measurements is not that important. That we measure a classical system and measurement does not disturb it significantly. So the disturbance is not captured in any in the dynamics or transformation. But in quantum mechanics, the measurements are defined by a set of a complete set of projectors. Here I'm considering only the projection operators. Okay, one can generalize it to POVM and all that, but let's consider that pi I is a projection operator and pi j is orthogonal. Okay, now state update rule states that when a pi I is selected from the set and it operates on the state, okay, so state is updated according to this state update rule, and the probability with this pi I is picked by the measurement procedure is given by this, okay, Bond rule. Now we take this as postulate of quantum mechanics. People are trying to derive Bond rule and state update rule with various interpretations and formalisms. But let's talk about standard quantum mechanics, where it is taken as an postulate, as a postulate. Okay. So okay, so how are the measurements performed? So certain thing here. So this random picking of an operator is a mysterious part here. That what why it is random, or what causes, what determines the probability. These are conceptual difficulties in measurement. Now let's talk about measurements. How are the measurements performed? Now consider a spin half system as okay. Consider a spin half system as with psi given by this. Okay, so it is a superposition of a spin up and down in z basis. Okay, now consider an interaction, okay, with another spin half particle. So given by Hamiltonian H interaction by H bar sigma z tensor sigma y. So it is an interaction Hamiltonian between two spin half particles. And sigma y acts on spin up. So up and down here are basis of sigma z. Okay, so you can see that how it transform these states. So if you try to so what you do is that you write unitary according to Schrodinger equation, and which comes to be this. Okay, now if you initially consider both particle in up, so it gives you up tensor plus. Plus is your sigma x basis. Okay, so and when the first particle is down and second is up, we will consider only both cases, because we will see that the second particle is acting as a pointer. Okay, so when this unity acts on this, it gives you down and tensor minus. Okay, so if we have superposition as we consider, it gives you a kind of maximally entangled. Okay, it is a kind of entanglement in so it is an entangled state. So if you measure pointer in plus, it will give you information about the sigma z. Okay, now any question? Okay, okay, so the case here considered, we are both particles are microscopic. Okay, so it's just a trivial case where two particles are interacting at the microscopic level, and the final state is entangled. There's nothing interesting in that. Okay, now let's consider there are multiple particles. Okay, so one is the first particle is taken in a psi, but all other spin-up particles are in sigma z basis, where same state, so it's up. Okay, now u1 is interaction between the first particle and the system and first ancilla. Okay, and u2 is the same interaction of the system and the second particle. Now they are they are acting one by one, so there is a chain of interaction. This interaction will give you this state. Okay, so it is alpha, first particle in up, and all the rest of particle in plus the superposition of beta down, and tensor all the ancillars in minus. Okay, now you can see that this is a kind of a macroscopic state, that n, if you can take n significantly large, you can consider macroscopic, for example Avogadro number or such that, then a macroscopic object is in superposition. Okay, now here the quantum mechanics does not prevent us to apply these unities to arbitrary number of particles. Okay, so it is like there is no constraint in a standard quantum mechanics. So our final state is a macroscopic superposition. Suppose these are a large number of particles, such that these this system of multi-particle can produce a bulk magnetization. Now this state will give you a bulk magnetization in superposition. So there can be a magnetic field in your laboratory, which is measurable by your given available device in your laboratory, and the magnetic field is in superposition, quantum superposition. It is not the superposition coming from Maxwell equation. It is quantum superposition, that it is let's say upward direction and downward direction simultaneously. And if you put a magnet in between these in this magnetic field, the displacement of magnet will be in superposition. So you see that it is with such kind of interactions gives you if you consider these magnet as a pointer, it will give you a superposition of being in two places. Okay, now consider the case of Schrodinger's cat. It is nothing but a Schrodinger cat. Okay, So Schrödinger presented a paradox in 1935, end of 1935, to show a paradoxical situation where quantum mechanics, according to him, has a serious conceptual problem. Okay, so so consider a box, and there is a decaying nuclei which is decaying, and this decaying particle triggers a poison. If it decays, it triggers, and if it doesn't trigger the poison, and the cat dies if the poison is triggered. Okay, so if we apply this kind of dynamics to this closed laboratory, we will see that there is a state of cat being in superposition, live and alive, dead. Okay, so this is a paradox, and people try to solve it with certain interpretations and formulations. Now there is extended version of this cat paradox called Wigner's friend paradox. Now suppose that there is a closed laboratory, and there is an observer outside the laboratory, W, and there is a friend of W inside laboratory, and C is performing measurement on spin half particle. Okay, now you can apply this scenario one by one on the all microscopic entities of the laboratory, including all particles that forms the body of friend and environment, and reach a conclusion that if we apply Schrödinger dynamics here, the laboratory is in superposition. So if it is down, laboratory goes to so this is the state corresponding to laboratory having knowledge that spin is down, and you can see that. So this is the spin, and this is the device state, and this is the memory of the observer, which is friend of W, Wigner. So this is the wave function of the macroscopic body. Okay, now there will be a superposition of both if the initial spin system is in superposition of up and down. Okay. So for friend, there is a collapse. Okay, friend measures and there is a collapse. It is either up or down. But when Wigner performs measurement of superposition, that lab being up and down. So if this Wigner tries to perform measurement on complete laboratory, which is multi-particle entangled state, such that there is a superposition of this state and this state. So this answer of the outcome of measurement will be always one, will be always certain, because Wigner knows the initial state, which is, let's say, half probability, so 1/√2 down plus up, which is x. Okay, so its outcome will be always deterministic, but outcome of friend is probabilistic. Okay, so there is a at the agent level there is a kind of contradiction, but it is a different thing that they will never be able to compare these outcomes and arrive at an contradiction.
Okay, here I have a doubt. I mean, I didn't fully understand why it will be deterministic for Wigner, and yeah, that part I didn't fully understand.
So you didn't understand the why it should be deterministic for W, right?
Yes.
Okay, so see, a friend's measurement setting is in Z basis. Okay, so outcome is probabilistic. Now W's outcome, Wigner is performing in a separate basis. Okay, different basis. So it is W is performing in whole on the entire laboratory, and its measurement basis is this state, this entire state. Let's call it plus. Okay, plus of lab. So L plus, let's call it L plus. Okay, and this is L minus. Now he is performing measurement plus L minus basis. Okay,
Yeah.
So you got it?
Yeah. But if the initial state is itself probabilistic, then still Wigner can have some probabilistic outcomes, right? That's what my doubt is.
Yeah, no. So initial state is not probabilistic. It is a pure state.
Okay, okay.
So S is a pure state. So it's okay. So it is a pure state, but even pure state can give you a probabilistic outcome if you do not
Right.
measure in the basis which it is prepared in, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you perform measurement in the same basis which it is prepared in, then you will get always the deterministic outcome.
Because F has already performed the measurement according to Wigner.
F is perform measurement according to F, right? But according to W, it is in superposition.
Okay.
So whole laboratory is still in a pure state.
Justin has
Sorry?
also raised a hand.
Yeah,
Yeah, yes.
Bhatti, would it still be deterministic if the friend did not perform a measurement?
Yes, it will be deterministic.
Okay.
So if friend does not perform measurement, okay, then
I mean,
it will not be it will not be in outcome will not be deterministic. Yeah.
So then they can differentiate when the friend has performed a measurement or not.
Yes, it is trivial that Wigner can find that whether. So suppose that a friend has a choice of whether performing measurement or not. Okay, and friend is randomly choosing that whether she is going to perform a measurement or not, and W has a freedom of choice to perform measurement according to him. So W can verify whether friend has performed a measurement or not.
I see.
Okay. So Wigner is performing measurement on an entangled state. Okay. So he can find out whether the state is entangled or not. Okay. So is everything clear?
For me, I think it is.
I hope so. Okay. Okay. So definitely there is a problem. Okay, and we have to fix it. So people try to provide solutions using various interpretations and new formulations of quantum mechanics. Okay, we are not going to discuss these interpretations here, but we can say that there are many interpretations. There are more than these 10 interpretations, and it's a huge literature. So every interpretation either use the same formalism of standard quantum mechanics or modify it and or interpret the components of theory differently. So these are approaches, but the problem remains intact here, that which interpretation is correct or most suitable, or we can say that we can ask that which one is not possible. Okay, so problem is still there. So one can say that measurement problem is solved if one takes any of the approaches. Okay, so it is solved, but we do not know whether the theory is correct or not. Okay, so now question is how to eliminate these theories. So here the no-go theorems play a role. So for example, Bell's theorem says that these local hidden variable theories are not possible. So this candidate is ruled out. Okay. Now there are certain other no-go theorems. For example, PBR, which claims that epistemic fleet is not possible. Okay. So assumption that they assume additional local hidden variable okay, which are contextual and with certain assumptions. Okay, sorry. So non-local hidden variables. So they say that in certain assumptions, they are also not possible. Okay, so there are many theorems, and the PBR, this FR theorem today we are going to discuss is kind of theorem that categorizes these theories based on their assumptions. Okay. So what are the assumptions that goes into Prochinger theorem? Okay. So the assumption Q. So assumption Q. So one thing, let's make clear that we are going to deal with agents. Okay. So agents are these observers which perform measurements and can infer certain things about the system. Okay, and make further predictions. Okay, so these assumptions are revolving around agents. So these agents are macroscopic objects which perform a measurement on a quantum system. Now suppose that an agent A has established using certain theory that statement system S is in state psi S at time t naught. So consider a system S, it can be spin or anything, or a macroscopic system, which is in state psi at a particular time. And furthermore, agent A knows, depending on the circumstances of the physical situation, the value X is obtained by a measurement of S. So there can be a family of Heisenberg operators. So here Heisenberg operator is nothing but a measurement setting. Okay, so it is a measurement setting at the t naught time, and outcome is X. Okay, relative to t naught, which is completed at t. Okay, so from t naught to t it is completed. So if the probability of getting xi is 1 for some this outcome, conclude that I am certain that X is equals to xi at time t. Okay, so in simpler words, it says that if a state of a system is known, okay, and measurement setting is defined, and furthermore, if the probability of a particular outcome is 1, then one can say with certainty that when measurement is completed, the state is the outcome. Okay, it is xi. Okay, so it is a very natural assumption. Okay, which only concerns the probability 1. Okay. Now assumption C. Assumption C is that suppose that agent A has established that I am certain that another agent A prime, upon reasoning within the same theory as the one I am using, is certain that X is equals to xi at time t. Then agent A can conclude that I am certain that X is equals to xi at time t. So it is basically kind of compatibility. Okay. So if suppose Alice is performing measurement in lab 1 on a system, and there is Bob which is sitting in lab B, and Bob is certain that A, when performs measurement and using the same theory, is certain that at a time t the state of system is the outcome of measurement is X equals to xi. Then I am also certain that it is xi. Okay, so here it is kind of equivalence between the laboratories, compatibility, that if one observer concludes something, then using the same theory I can conclude that what he has concluded. Okay, and this is also obvious assumptions at the first place. Okay, now there is another the third assumption, which says that if one agent has established that I am certain that X equals to xi at time t, okay, then I am certain that the A must necessarily deny that I am certain that x is not equal to xi at time t. So it is an assumption that a measurement outcome has a single outcome. A measurement setting has a single outcome at a one realization. It is not that measurement number of outcomes. No, it is in a particular measurement run, there is a single outcome. So if you send a photon and photon in an Mach-Zehnder interferometer and you put detector outside that, you will find only one particle if you send only one particle. Okay, so it is this kind of thing, that if it is up, then it cannot be down. Okay. So if any question?
Yeah, Bhatti,
Yeah.
can you give some examples corresponding to these three assumptions? I mean, some quantum mechanical scenarios, because they seem kind of fishy assumptions.
Why would you say?
Especially C. I mean, I
Okay,
am
okay.
not sure. I mean, whether they are.
Sure.
Obvious.
Okay, okay. So let me give an example. Okay, so consider consider Stern-Gerlach experiment. Okay, and say that system S. So you send a particle, single particle. Okay, single particle, and this system you have determined before sending to the magnetic field gradient that it is in, let's say, plus state. Okay, sigma x basis, and then it passes through the magnetic field gradient and hits the screen. Okay, now this and your measurement setting, the Heisenberg operators are up and down, sigma z basis. Okay, so you up probability, right? But let's say your measurement setting is in sigma x. So you know that the outcome will be deterministically up because you are sending plus. Okay, so you can be certain that at time t the state is plus if you are sending a plus. I think is it clear? It is that basic.
This one is clear. Yeah, this one is clear.
Hello. This one is
Yeah,
clear,
hello.
right?
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Now
this one is clear.
suppose that so I am coming to
1 sec, Bhatti bhaiya. Hello. I think we have lost.
I think we are lost.
okay, good.
Bhatti bhaiya,
Now
actually
assumptions. Suppose you are hello.
Bhaiya, I think your internet connection is very unstable. We are losing you.
Hello. Am I audible? So now it's working.
Now it's okay. You can continue. I'll tell you. It's not.
Okay. So coming to assumption C. So in the same example, suppose you are experiment, okay, and you are using a particular theory, and you are sure that at a certain time t the state is plus. Okay, and this is your prediction before the measurement, that when you perform measurement you will get plus this with probability 1. Then if you are using the same theory I am using, then I should also be certain that the outcome will be plus at time t. It is that compatibility. Okay, so it is assumption C. So it is like you're transferring the statement to another laboratory. Okay, so this is the inference of compatible, so assumption of compatibility, and then the assumption S is the assumption that a particular realization of measurement cannot give you two outcomes. Okay, so if you send a particle in an Stern-Gerlach apparatus, you cannot get two clicks at the same time. So if it hits the plus, it cannot be minus with certainty. Okay. Now, okay. Now moving to the theorem. Now, FR proves that the conjunction of Q, C, and S gives contradictory statements, and therefore, at least one of these statements should be, relaxed for a physical theory. Okay. Now, these assumptions sounds, correct for quantum theory, and people assumes the assumption blindly. But they say that not every interpretation is, assuming these three statements at the same time. That's the interesting point. Now, to prove this theorem, they consider a thought experiment. So, are we taking a rest?
Yeah, we can take
Shashwat?
a break after 3 minutes, maybe.
Okay, sure.
So if you want to start this after the break, then we can take a break right now. And
Yeah, no problem.
So, yeah, we can. So I haven't, written the calculations here thoroughly, but so you can ask anytime. If you don't.
Bhaiya, you haven't told the theorem yet, right? Or...
No, he did. Just
no go future.
Achha, okay.
Okay, then we'll take a break now. We'll meet back at 5:05.
Okay. So they consider an extended version of Wigner's-Friend paradox. Okay, Friend scenario. Okay, so there are two laboratories, and each laboratory has one Wigner and one Friend. Okay, so this is L bar lab, and Wigner bar is outside the laboratory, and Friend is inside, and you can see that there is a similar laboratory L, and there are similar situations. So what Friend of L bar, so let's call it laboratory 1 and laboratory 2. Okay, so laboratory 1, Friend tosses a coin. Okay, and so here they consider this coin toss as a quantum bit, so it is a spin half system, and they just measure up or down. Okay, so if it is tails, they do certain things to another system, and if it is heads, they do certain another operation on the same system. So here Friend has one coin, which is quantum, which is qubit, and a system S, which she can manipulate depending on the outcome. Okay, now so there are 4 steps of the experiment. At first step, Friend 1 tosses coin. If it is heads, okay, so if the outcome is heads, then it performs an operation on S such that it becomes spin down in sigma z basis. So it is down. Okay. And if it is tails, it performs an operation such that it becomes plus state in sigma x basis. Okay. So it is superposition of up and down. Okay. And depending on the outcome, C performs operation and sends this system to lab 2. Okay. Now here, the friend perform measurement on the received system. Okay. So it is either in a basis of sigma z. So friend just measure the outcome of the sigma z basis. Outcome in a sigma z basis. Now, for these W bar and W, the both laboratories are in superposition. Okay. Then what happens? And interestingly, the both laboratories are entangled. Okay. Now you can see why they are entangled, because when F bar sends the system here, and F performs measurement on the system, it is kind of thing that F can infer certain things about the outcome of coin toss, depending on outcome in her laboratory. Okay, and if you write a composite system, you will get an entry. It is a simple calculation. Now W bar will perform measurement on this laboratory, just like Wigner did in his experimental setting. Okay, so W bar will perform joint, measurement on a composite system, the laboratory, friend, and the coin. Similarly, W will perform measurement on his laboratory, which is the system plus friend system. Okay, and they will infer certain things and try to reach an conclusion based on their reasoning, and they will use all these three assumptions to infer certain things. Okay, now I can briefly mention that what are their measurement settings. So first order is that first certain things happen in laboratory 1, then C sends to laboratory 2, then F performs measurement in second step. In third step, W bar performs measurement on L bar, and in final step W performs measurement on L. Okay, so I will come back to this. Okay, so let's see that what are the measurement settings. Okay, so there are relevant vectors of measurement basis. So first system is our coin. Okay, and coin can take values heads and tails and superposition of that. Okay, and so this is the relevant vector for F bar, the first observer. Then the system goes to F, additional system goes to F, and F's states relevant bases are up and down. Then W bar performs measurement on F bar laboratory, and his relevant vector of measurement bases are these. Okay, so this laboratory L bar is the state of laboratory that the outcome was heads, and T bar is outcome that the state that outcome was tails. Okay, now he performs experiment in the superposition state. Okay, so this is one of the basis of his measurement setting. So another outcome can be identity minus projection of this the OK bar cat, OK bar bra. So so if this outcome does not occur, W bar will conclude that outcome was fails. Okay, so it is binary outcome, either it is OK or fail. And similarly, W performs measurement on his laboratory, and it is also the same kind of. So his outcome is also either OK or OK bar, or OK or OK fail. Okay, so whatever finds you good, you can assume. So it is binary outcome. All measurements are binary outcomes, and the measurement settings are these. Now let's go to this. Okay, so so initial state, let's focus on this part, that what are the initial state. So initial state is the system they have considered is this, with probability 1 by 3 heads and 2 by 3 tails, but it is considered it is a pure state. Okay, it's not mixed state. So initial the coin is in this state, and then after the after the operation by F bar, the unitary transforms the system in this state. So if it is heads, it will brings the whole laboratory in a certain state, which is corresponding to the outcome heads, and then transform the additional system, which will be sent to laboratory L, to this state. So it is a manipulation of the additional system. And if it comes tails, then C will manipulate the system to be in this sigma X basis. Okay. And then it is sent to the laboratory, second laboratory. So now what can they infer?
Yeah, can you go to the previous slide? Yeah, here the transformation from heads to, when the friend is sending to the other lab, it goes to head bar tensor down, right? And for tails, it goes to tail bar tensor in let's say sigma X. So I mean
sigma X plus, plus.
Yeah, sigma X plus, but heads and tails are, they can be discriminated single shot. So, but here it's not possible, right? Using the other friend's lab. So the other friend is encoding it in sigma Z down and sigma X plus. They are not orthogonal, but head and tails are orthogonal.
Yeah. See, so your question is that whether it is a feasible unitary, like whether it is a unitary.
No, it's a unitary, of course, but my point is, why this complication? I mean, since head and tails are orthogonal, so the encoding should also be orthogonal, right? I mean,
no, that will be a trivial case. So yes, that's where things come now. When you, in your thought experiment, you use certain things which are not trivial. So here, so the operation is unitary, and C is using this arrangement to reach a contradiction. Okay.
Yeah, but
so all
other friend
is that.
Yeah, for the other friend.
So you can write a superposition of this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, for the other friend, it is not. The other friend cannot tell whether it was heads or tails after she has, manipulated the system.
No, yeah. So C can infer a particular case. We will come to that. So C can infer certain things. So for example, so see that here, if the heads gives you this state and tails give you this state, then in another laboratory, the state is in superposition of these. Okay, so heads gives you root 3 times this. Okay,
right,
plus root 2 by 3 and this. Now you can decompose this sigma X basis, so a plus state, to up and down, right? So it will be 1 by root 2 up plus 1 by root 2 down. Now 1 by root 2 will be cancelled out here. 1 by root 3 will come out. So state will become head down plus tail up plus tail down.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, head and tails are orthogonal, but at the end of the day, the encoding is not orthogonal.
Yeah, so I'm coming to your point. So suppose so second laboratory where the system, this system is sent. Okay. Now if C performs measurement in up and down basis, Okay. Then if C gets down, that down can come from this as well as from this.
Right.
Right. So there are both possibilities. But if C gets up, C can say with certainty that it came from this. There is no way down, up can come from heads. Do you agree?
I agree that.
Yeah. So C uses this thing that if her outcome, if L's outcome is up, then C can establish that L bar, F bar has had tails. So what she can certainly say that in laboratory 1, the outcome was tails.
Yeah. Okay.
So she uses this statement to
So the
further.
statements will only be for the tail outcome, right?
Yes, only for tail, and only for particular outcome which is up. Only when this is up,
Okay.
she can assert something.
Okay.
Otherwise, she cannot say anything.
Right.
Right. Now suppose, now consider this case that it is up, and so I will begin the discussion from here. And so suppose it is up, then she has established using assumption Q that it was up. That's why the outcome in laboratory 1 was tail. Okay, here she is using the assumption Q that if this is the outcome, she can assert this statement with certainty. Okay, so that was up, and if this laboratory L bar, so here, so if laboratory F bar has outcome, let's say tails, then if she predicts the outcome of W, what will be the outcome? So one can calculate. It is very obvious thing that when it is tails here, its outcome is okay, okay, there is an outcome. So let's go to here. So these are inferences drawn based on these assumptions. So if R is tails, which is the outcome of coin in laboratory 1, then the statement that W will observe fail. So I haven't shown calculation here, but it is trivial. So so F bar can conclude that the outcome of W will be fail. Means that his outcome will not be observed. Okay. Now, so now come to the F, laboratory L, and observer F. Now, if observer F gets plus half, that means that she can establish that in laboratory 1 the outcome was tails, and if outcome was tails, and L bar, that the outcome of W will be fail. The future prediction of laboratory L bar. Okay, and if she has established L bar that the outcome will be W is equals to fail using the same theory, then I am certain that outcome will be W fail. Okay, so here she is using assumption C. Okay, and similarly, if W gets outcome which is same what we are talking about, that if he gets okay, It can come only if it was tails. It is same thing is applicable for this laboratory also. Okay, now so C establishes that this is fill. Now C infers at the second step that F bar's outcome was tails. That's why W will observe fail. Okay. Now W bar uses the same argument because his measurement setting is also similar. So he will say that it is if a certain outcome is occurred, then it can only come via tails. And if there is a tails in this laboratory and F bar is using the same theory what W bar is using, then F bar, according to assumption C, his prediction is also that W will get fail. Okay, but when we calculate using in W's reference frame, okay, in W's reference frame, the whole superposition is such that there will never be so whenever he W bar gets OK bar, whenever W bar gets OK bar, he will that's the conclusion of these three observers, that whenever W bar gets OK bar, he will get fail. Okay, so the outcome that OK bar and OK has probability 0 according to this reasoning. But when W calculates this situation using considering all these three observers as a composite system, he sees that there is a 1/12 probability of getting OK bar, OK bar, OK bar, OK. Okay, so you see, so contradiction is that these three observers and W himself, because if W bar has announced that he has got OK bar, and W is using assumption C that W bar, if W bar is certain that W will get I will, which means that I will get OK, I will get fail. Okay, whenever he gets OK bar. So the outcome, the probability of getting OK bar OK is 0 according to this line of reasoning. But if we apply quantum mechanics to a whole system, considering all these four composite system, or at least these three composite system, and looking from the frame of reference of W, we get 1/12 probability of getting OK bar OK. So that's the contradiction. Now the W is using S, everyone is using S here, that outcome cannot take two values. Okay, so if a measurement outcome cannot has two outcomes simultaneously, then this reasoning is correct, and that's why they are so if they consider these three assumptions simultaneously, they reach to a contradiction. Okay. So based on, so any question? Maybe I could have written much simpler.
What does this question mark mean for many words? It has not been done, is it?
Okay, yeah. So what they are saying is that no, they haven't specified these things here, but it's they don't know actually. People still don't know that whether many-world interpretation assumes Q and C.
So they actually verified this for all these theories.
So yeah, so what they did is they analyzed all, so not all postulates. So suppose if Copenhagen assumes Q and S, okay, so they know that looking at the structure of Copenhagen, they must consider Q and S. then they are bound to relax C. So that's how they categorize these theories. For example, let's say collapse theories. Collapse theories consider that S and C are are ingredient of these theories, that you cannot consider these theories without S and C. Then you are bound to rule out, you are bound to relax Q. Okay, now one may say that how can one rule out Q if it is like it's a special case of bond rule. If you look at Q, that if you know with certainty, you are sure that the outcome will be this. Now, why it is not applicable is because collapse theory says when quantum theory comes to macroscopic objects, the Schrodinger equation is modified, and you cannot do, you can no longer predict the outcome deterministically. So when there are observers involved, the one has to drop Q for collapse theories. So they have categorized these interpretations based on which theory relaxes which assumption. So you can see it. So that's the crux of this paper, that they have categorized these as interpretations based on law. But this experiment is not physically implementable.
Oh, that's what my next question was actually. Have they not done an experiment? Why isn't the experiment implemented?
No, it's not possible. You have to perform measurement on a macroscopic object. So you have to treat a human being as a quantum system.
Oh, no, that.
So we cannot at current stage of technology, you cannot. It's just far beyond that. Right now, the macroscopic, so largest quantum system we have, quantum effects. We have tested it for quantum mechanics. I'm not audible. You are not audible.
Yeah. That's
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So any question? पूछो यार. Okay.
Any more questions? Anyone? Maybe that's it now. Thank you, Bhaiya.
Thank you. It could have been better, I think. I started making slides in the morning. I thought that I will present on iPad or that. And yeah. So.
But I think it was still amazing and very well explained, and you took everything from very basics. So
it could have been better if I had put calculations. I have done in my way, but I think it is not that difficult. If you consider macroscopic state in superposition, then you will, if you understand the standard Wigner paradox, you will get this trivial.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Shashwat.